Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Late Night Happy Hour. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky coming to you. It's Wednesday? I don't even know anymore. Like, this week has been...
It is Wednesday.
This week has been ridiculous.
Wednesday, the 21st of August in the year of our Lord, 2020.
No, definitely not
August. October.
Jesus.
You're right.
October.
Man, what is going on?
Even I knew what month it is. I mean, I don't...
Where did I get August from? Wow. That was off. But anyway, I did have the day right. It's the 21st.
Can you hear me again? Sorry.
Yes, I can. I can hear you. It is the 21st.
Oh, wait. In, out, cutting in and out. There we go. Back.
And we'll get it.
Can you hear me, Andy?
Yeah. Get your...
I can't hear you. Now I got to go back, and here's LZ.
All right. Get your proverbial,
I got to reset everything.
Stuff together, because LZ...
My mic became up. Oh, you guys talk while I figure this out.
Why do you have your first and last names?
I don't know.
That's actually a really interesting question.
I'm just looking. I'm like, it's your show. It's like,
that is true.
I'm sure if Oprah Winfrey just said, "Just call me Oprah," it'll be okay.
That's true. There's a reason. I mean,
can you hear Andy?
Yeah, LZ can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't. All right, I'll figure this out.
I mean, she manages to make it clear with her magazine. Like, is it Oprah or is it the magazine? Oh. She doesn't even need the full name.
No pra. There's no need for a pra.
That is true.
And that's what I'm saying. You guys are famous enough. I think you can at least get away with not having your full last name.
Okay, we'll
should we do it like kindergarten where we say like Brian K? Andy K and Brian K.
LZ may be onto something. It is our show. It may not be necessary. Although, I mean, for years, it was Late Night with David Letterman. I mean, he reminded everybody as big as he was every day.
That's true.
David Letterman.
It wasn't just Late Night with David.
True. That's true.
How are you, my friend?
It was the Arsenio Hall show, too.
Was the Arsenio Hall show?
I need to reprocess this. Keep your last name. I'm doing, relatively well. It's such a crazy time. And I'm not sure if 2020 is making a comeback or not. So I'm being very cautious, but it feels like it's trying to end in a much better note. What's going on, Brian? You still can't hear us?
I think he's having headphones issues. I think that's the issue. He's dealing with headphones and mic.
See, I went full headphone.
Yes, that's what I do as well. I go full on. I've got the buds. So now you were mentioning 2020 being the year of insanity right now, and I think it's safe to say these next couple weeks are only going to get even more wacky.
That will be true.
I
will be true.
We do plan on actually at some point in the show talking a little bit about LeBron and more than a vote and these initiatives, because we're right now getting to this place where these efforts that he and other NBA players and players across sports actually really start to matter. Mm-hmm. But there was a game tonight, and before we even get into this game, LZ, I needed confirmation from a poll that you had up yesterday.
Sativa.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You put out a poll. I
decided to go with sativa. Yes.
You put out a poll before Game 1, World Series tonight. As a Dodger fan, should I sativa, indica, hybrid, none of the above? Hybrid won out. Yet you went with sativa.
Yes.
What was the rationale?
I used a lifeline.
You phoned a friend.
I phoned a friend. It was like, I know what the people are saying, but you know what? The people are the reason why we're in this situation we are today. So I decided to just phone a friend and say, you know what? This is my anxiety, and this friend pays attention to zero sports. So I just gave them some of the issues I was having, symptoms, if you will.
Yes.
I was like, I'm feeling a little antsy, because this person who's a really good singer from time to time, when they perform live, don't do as well as the recording, and they're performing live, and so I have anxiety. So I phrased it that way in a language that he will understand, and he offers sativa.
Well, the strain matters. I mean, in terms of the mood that you want, the actual strain involved does matter.
Yes.
Having gone with sativa, though, are you like an athlete with superstitions or things like that? Or
yes.
So
indica tomorrow, people. Although, in all honesty, we all knew that we were set up to lose, right? Like they rolled out their best pitcher. We said we're going to roll out everyone who we don't want to start. I mean, that's
former Cy Young winner. Everyone we don't want to start. That's a tough go.
Right. It's just sort of like, so the simple fact that we had to stay up until the 9th inning before we had a resolution speaks to just how talented this team is.
Yeah. I mean, it went sideways pretty quickly in terms of you recognizing in this game, okay, I'm not saying they're going to lose, like, at inning 2, right. But it did feel like, all right, this strategy, this, outside the box approach to this, we might want to get back inside the box. The box was safer.
And, the thing I think that's also really revealing about what happened tonight was that when the pitching's not right, the guys pressed more than we've seen them recently do in this postseason. Early on, especially yesterday, they were patient. They had no problems at all taking strikes they knew they couldn't do anything with, making sure there was a full count. Like, they ran him out by their patience as much as their hitting. And when I think about what happened to us tonight, particularly in those later innings, we started looking for home runs again, like the old, the old Dodgers, where it's like, oh, we're down 5. Well, I'll take care of it with one swing, as opposed to enjoying the process of manufacturing runs, because not only does that keep you in the game, but it also adds additional pressure to the pitching staff.
Yeah, they're basically sort of treating every at-bat like it's a rock and jock game, where you can get the 7-run homer and the 14-run Bill Bellamy special or whatever it might be. I just, I think, again, it's like I go back to I forget which game it was, when in the last series where they couldn't hit, fall way behind, and then almost come back. Yeah. That one to me was significant. I feel like tonight, the fact that, like you said, LZ, it came down to the 9th inning. Like, they got some runs on the board. Seager hit another home run. Like, there is no reason for the Dodgers to leave this game feeling any worse about themselves than they did when they walked in. Like, I don't think anybody thought they were going to sweep Tampa. They're a good team.
No, they're the best team in the AL, so we have to respect them. I know that people go, oh, well, they don't have a long history in the World Series. Who freaking cares? Who cares you won World Series in 1905? All those racist white men that didn't want me to play anyway, they're dead. So like what they did back then doesn't matter tonight. Quite dead. Dead over and over and over again. So when I hear about the history comparison, I don't particularly care about that unless it's recent. Like, I've been to the World Series 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Oh, well, now see, that's tangible.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a reminder that not all tangible history, is good. Like, in terms of figuring out where you stand, like it has not been comforting for Dodger fans knowing that they've been to the World Series 3 out of the last 4 years or whatever. Like, that hasn't been a security blanket for fans. That hasn't made them feel good. That's led to them needing sativa.
Well, I mean, this is actually, since I've moved to LA, this is the first time that I won't be there for a World Series game with the Dodgers. I didn't miss any World Series games in Dodger Stadium. Missed only 2 postseason games since I've been here.
Yeah, Kershaw mentioned that in the press conference. He's like, "We're doing this without LZ. It's weird, but we're gonna try.
We're gonna try." And so when they won yesterday, I was like, "Going, it was me. My presence did this to us. So I'm glad I'm not there." And now tonight, it's like going, "I need to get on a plane right away. They need me. They can't do it without me."
Would you want to go? Like, because not even setting COVID aside, like I think I'm not sure how much I'd want to, spend the money, do all this, to be in a crowd of 12,000 people, half of whom aren't even fans of the team. Like, the whole point of going to a World Series game is either you are packed in with people who are like-minded like you and everybody pulling in the same direction, or you are in the enemy territory. You're the one blue hat, in this case, whatever colors the Rays are wearing. These, like, you want to be the one guy sticking out. You see the other guy over there, and like, would you want to go under these circumstances anyway?
Well, I'm a Detroit Lion fan, so what you just described is basically my childhood. So that doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. The only reason why I didn't go for game one was really because I had like a doctor's appointment I kept putting off. And then my husband had his doctor appointment, and we had enough news come from that go, you know what? We are middle-aged. Maybe I should actually take this thing seriously. Of course, I go there, they draw my blood, blah, 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 and say, you're completely healthy, get out of here. But it was a scheduling thing. The whole point was it was a scheduling thing why I didn't go. It wasn't I'm afraid of COVID. It wasn't about the environment not being what I'm used to, because I just love being in the presence of history. And 32 years, man, right?
Yeah.
History.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, I mean, I've heard a lot of NBA writers and media people who were down in the bubble talking about how as interminable as it felt at times, and you could see that, like, the guys like Chris Haynes or, you know, Rachel Nichols or Malika Andrews, like, the ones that have been there for a long time, Kyle Goon, like, they were ready to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
That being said, they all recognize, like, we are witnessing something that, God willing, we will never see again, or at least if we don't, it will not be for a long time. I guess the hope is we won't be I was going to say that we're not reliving this in 2021, but assuming that's not the case, like, you are documenting something that only a small handful of people will really have any idea what it's like. I mean, I've been to multiple NBA finals. I've been to multiple World Series, all that stuff. I have no idea what they went through. Like, I don't have a clue.
Well, that's the power of reporting, right? Like, that's the reason why the forefathers said, this media thing, this is actually good for democracy, because that means there are a group of people who are dedicated to bearing witness to history and making sure that when the stories are told about this time period, that they're as accurate as possible. And I know it makes it sound like I'm doing like this big, Aaron Sorkin sort of soliloquy about journalism. But I mean, from sports to politics to political, the presence of journalists is extremely important, because 15, 20 years from now, people may forget what this time period was like. And it's the journalists, it's the authors, it's the storytellers who remind people, just as we're reminded by people of the greatness of Kareem in the debate when it comes to GOAT. From time to time, he falls off the list, and it's simply because we weren't there to bear witness, but journalism gives us that.
Okay, I agree with you on principle, and I think you are completely correct in everything you're saying. If we managed, can I come back tomorrow?
Andy's already used the word interminable. Andy's already used interminable correctly tonight, so he's just feeling saucy.
Yes, I'm feeling saucy right now.
Very good, very good.
But if we managed to forget what this was like in 10 to 20 years, my God, we suck. Like, we are the worst. If we manage to forget this, as you said, in like 20 years.
But we forget things all the time because our culture has sped up so much now.
I know, but I mean,
eras are quicker, generations are shorter, so things are moving so much. We've forgotten so much shit that's happened in the last 20 years.
I know, but I mean, but this is big. Like, this is.
And it was big back then too. You know why we keep saying never forget, always remember? Because we will if we don't. That's what Coco was all about. Didn't you see Coco?
I did see Coco. Yes. But I mean, but they didn't deal with the pandemic in Coco. They were just remembering things from history that mattered. I mean,
history, dangerous boyfriend. Okay, I got it.
I know. I mean, still, I mean, cultural history and whatnot.
I'm on LZ's side here. I forgot the name of my children earlier today. And in fairness, there are 3 of them. And so I think to be expected to remember all of them every day, I think that's a lot. But it's the speed. I think it really is the speed of things. Like, I was just joking about it. Like, every time Alex Wood pitches, I am reminded of the fact that I've forgotten that Alex Wood is on the team. Andy noted that he hadn't thought about David Price since David Price. I mean, these are relatively insignificant things,
right?
But then you start to kind of fast forward to the important stuff. The amount of things that we forget about what the last few months were like. Oh my God, I forgot about impeachment. Like remember when impeachment was like the biggest thing ever?
Right. Like, remember the Tiger King?
Remember the murder hornets?
Yes. Tiger King. Okay, there was a moment during it was during the pandemic. It was, I think, right around before the bubble launched that I really recognized we are in this bizarre period of history where just everything is piling upon itself, and things that are horrific, things that are bizarre, things that are sickly funny, whatever, but that we just nothing retains.
Right.
When there was news about Carol Baskin being, I guess, connected potentially to one of those murders,
Right.
and nobody was talking about it. And like just a month before that, nobody could stop talking about Carol Baskin.
Right.
And this news came out about her, like actually putting her in more direct connection. I believe it put her in more of a connection to that.
Yeah, it did.
And nobody was talking about it. Like it did not matter to anybody at all.
I know. I did a story for the Times because remember Justin Turner had broke the news that they were doing one more episode. And so I did a piece with Justin about, how did that happen? And I remember it was really big news that the Tiger King had one more episode. And like I pressed send on the column, and I swear, like as soon as I pressed send, like no one cared about the Tiger King ever again. It was like a nothing column, and it was just like, but wait, no, see, there was news, and like JT, and I convinced him to talk to me, and like this is exclusive shit about Tiger King, y'all. And it was like no one gave a fuck, and I was like, I have to stay.
I picture you running to like the closest payphone, calling your editor, going, "Editor, I got a scoop. You'll never believe what I got."
But we were all excited because not only did he do the Tiger King thing, but it was also he had an idea about using home runs to end the games earlier. So they're around the same period of time. But because the Tiger King to me was the most important story, I think that's what I led with. And by then, people had already moved on to like the latest TikTok craze or whatever the hell it is.
As Memory's last points out in the chat, and then she goes on Dancing with the Stars, LOL. This feels like one of those that, and maybe not even that far from now, is going to feel like a regrettable decision. Like I just have a feeling that there are going to be some producers having to explain themselves when things come out.
Well, there have already been things that have come out about the harem that old dude has, missing bodies. But I think we talked about this before, guys. My great mystery, and what I really need someone to do a deep dive on, is how in the hell did the Tiger King get so many hot ass dudes to marry him? Like, I know I brought it up with you guys before, but I'm still possessed by this one question because it's just counterintuitive to everything that we've been taught in gay boy school. What to wear, how long your hair should be, what style of hair you should wear if it's certain length. Like all these finishing schools that I went through, and so many of my kind went through, and then the Tiger King parachutes in and he steals our men. Those are our men.
I mean, how many, I guess in your finishing school, how many of the courses dealt with Svengali's in Central Florida with a mullet? Like,
I don't recall. I didn't go to all the classes, I'll admit.
Maybe you skipped that day.
Well, when they got to moisturizer, I was just like, well, black don't crack, so I'm not taking that course.
Maybe that was the day, because
I should have taken the course, clearly.
There's a lid for every pot. I guess there's just a lot of lids for this pot.
I guess so. So then I started questioning myself. I was like, well, maybe he is hot and I can't see it. So let me watch him with a different sort of prism. And I went, nope, that is
there is no prism.
that will turn West Hollywood into Straightville just like that.
Can I be honest with you though? Like I have, how like every once in a while you develop like a pop culture black hole where you just like, it just doesn't penetrate. Like this was happening during the pandemic, early days, mention the kids. So I missed Tiger King, and I kind of made a decision to just be like, you know what? I'm just going to aggressively not know anything about Tiger King.
You're one of those.
And so I had no idea like Tiger King was gay, I guess. Like it was. I didn't know that. So I'm just nodding along.
You just found out? Story. I just broke news to you. Is it breaking news if it's old? Well, it's news to you.
It is news to me. Like,
News
so I have 2 holes now. I've seen half of one episode of The Sopranos, and I've never seen Tiger King.
Wow. Are you even American?
Maybe.
I've
seen The Americans, so I know how to answer that question.
Everyone has them, because, to like our earlier points about just how quick things are moving. Well, they're moving so quickly too because we have so many options, right? So we're just going to miss stuff. This isn't like MASH is on TV and this is our option.
Yeah.
This is so much going on. Like Fast and Furious movies, haven't seen a one.
I love them. I love them.
Haven't seen a one. I'm not aggressively trying not to see them. It's just my options are usually, a movie that's really good or one of those.
It is weird, though, to be in a place where, especially like the 3 of us who pay attention to a lot of different pop culture things, to be completely on the outside of something and have that's big, and you really have no either interest in it, idea of it. You can't get around to watching it. I was like that with Game of Thrones. I had no interest in it at all. Then eventually was like, okay, well, everybody's into this just for the pop culture currency.
Right.
I should know something. I tried 3 or 4 times to get through the pilot, and I was so bored. I was like, you know what? And this isn't my genre anyway. I was just like, man,
fantasy. Andy hates fantasy.
It's not fantasy. It's a political show with dragons.
No, I know that. Like, I know that it is. Like, I get that, but I was so bored, and I just was like, you know what? I'm so far behind at this point. It's not worth catching up.
You know what it was like? It was like if you took C-SPAN and you started chopping off random people's heads.
I would watch that.
And then a dragon shows up. But that was Game of Thrones. It was amazing.
It's awesome. But it helped to have started to be like, because I look at The Sopranos now in the same way that I look at books. It's like, I know I'm not going to finish you, so therefore I will not start. Like, I know. I wish I was a person who still read books. I am not. I don't.
No?
I don't have the time. I assume people are still writing them and they're still being printed.
They are still being written.
That's great. I'm very excited to hear that. But I don't think I've read I've read like 3 books in the last 5 years, I think. I don't know.
Holy cow. Were they good books? Or were they books with pictures?
Oh, well, no. If you count those, I've read many. But like, and if you count reading Harry Potter books aloud, I've read books. But like,
okay, all right.
But and so like The Sopranos is what, like 7, 8, 9 seasons? It's a big effing deal.
It's an investment.
If I can't finish it, I almost don't want to start. That's sort of how I feel about it.
All right. Remind me not to have you if I'm down 3-1 in my series.
No, you're going to follow it along.
I need you to fight, man.
Well, you're also too, LZ. I mean, you're a book clubber, correct? If I remember right.
So I tried to start a book club during the early days of the pandemic, and let's just say my co-hosts were very similar to Brian. So, but I kept going. I kept reading. I enjoy reading just because it allows me to be reminded of what writing is, what the process is, and it's like iron sharpening iron, sort of. As a writer, reading other writers, learning some things and things of that nature. So I enjoy that process. So I tend to want to read books by good authors as opposed to the subject matter.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Now that we're talking about this, books don't take up the same cultural currency in space that they used to, like when we were growing up. Right. Like you don't see or hear conversations about books the way you used to. And like you wonder like what books, if any, are like novels in particular, are going to come out, 40 years, like 40 years before kids eventually are
learning. Literature from today penetrates in the way that we read it 40, 50 years from now.
Like what is A Catcher in the Rye for generation 30 years from now, or A Native Son, or the books that everybody reads in high school, like that it's just Huckleberry Finn, like all these different books that you're just expected to read.
Great question.
It is a great question. I would think, maybe Ta-Nehisi Coates has written some stuff that would penetrate for
Yeah,
some distance.
but he's a weird example just in the sense that his is, if not totally nonfiction, it's sort of a blend. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking like pure fiction. You know, like
man, I'm trying to think. When was the last time I read a book like that?
I don't know when I have. I mean, much less one that was current. I have no idea.
I was reading. I read Baby Teeth, which is an incredibly uncomfortable book for me, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a classic. And I think that was probably my last sort of recent fictional book along that nature, what you're talking about. But you're right. I mean, I get approached a lot by people asking, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And I've ghostwritten a book, so so I understand the process. It's just I'm not intrigued by it, and I wonder if some of that has to do with what you're talking about, Andy. With what's in it? Why do a book if I could do a doc? Why do a book if I could do like something on YouTube?
Or a podcast series.
Or a podcast series. It's like medium has shifted. And so I don't think we need to look at books and authors as the sole gatekeepers towards intellectualism in this nation. We need to broaden it because the art has just exploded, right? It's just, and the way we tell stories, the way we report, the way people consume, all those things have just shifted.
Is that good? Or because it's on the one hand, it's like, part of the reason people quit newspapers or don't want to be beat writers for newspapers anymore is the stupidity of having to meet an artificial 9 p.m. deadline so you can make sure it gets to the printing press. It makes me can't write. And so, there are certain things that kind of become antiquated. And I don't want to say like literature is antiquated, but storytelling, which is essentially what literature is the mechanism. Like, it used to be like the only way you could spread a story from point A to point B was with a book.
Right.
Now there are 1,000 ways to do it. So
I think it's a good thing, because I think we tend to romanticize, previous eras, either because, we didn't do our homework or because it helped us fantasize. Like I fantasize about the Harlem Renaissance in ways that I know did not exist. Like I know black people did not walk down the street and the sidewalks lit up like Michael Jackson and Billie Jean King. I know it didn't, but in my mind's eye,
it did though. LZ in the white sections of town, just so you know, that actually did happen.
And I assumed as much.
That's a little known part of segregation is that the sidewalks lit up for the white people.
Exactly. And I was like going, why is Times Square always so bright? But
it's also a waste of light up sidewalks.
It is a waste of sidewalks. But I romanticize that period, right? Like I imagine Langston Hughes and I sharing a sherry and just riffing on like, the hue of leaves in the neighborhood, like whatever. But that didn't happen. And you know what else didn't happen? Everyone didn't read the books of the greats. That didn't happen either. Large swaths of the population, for various reasons, couldn't even read, some of the greats that we talk about, that we hand down. And so we may think that previous generations were like these voracious readers who were always valuing the library above all else. The truth is that, they were probably lazy asses too, to a certain degree. And, we just don't process it that way because we always like to think what it used to be was somehow inherently better than what it is today.
Well, I mean, also too, part of the point of having books, and I love to read and I wish I had more time to do it. And I have a decent book collection and a lot of the books I've read, but some books are there so people think you've read them. Like there's certain books that you are required to have people think that you've read. Like it's very important that you've read them or that you own them.
I confess. I did read The Audacity of Hope. But I did purchase, simply for style points, Dreams of My Father, and made sure that it was kind of like in the area. Now eventually I did read Dreams of My Father. This is true. But in 2007, I'm not going to lie to you guys. That shit was propped up next to the Bible, and I was fronting my ass off because I just can't lose any black points right now. I just can't. I got too much shit going on. I like country music. I'm gay. I'm married to a white man. Like, I got too much shit going on. So I had to make sure I was right in 2007. I just didn't have time to read the book at that time.
Yeah.
Just being real with you guys. Just being real.
Awesome. I mean, I'm trying to think of the books that I have on my shelves that it's like I purchased because I felt like I should. And I felt like I was smarter for having purchased this book, and I've never picked it up since.
Which book was it? Was it?
I'm trying to think, because I know there are some. There
is that one book that everyone says you have to read. You have to read, and it's like this thick.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this. It's like all of Harry Potter's in like one book.
Yeah,
and it's like the end of the world. Something about the way that we vegetate food or farm, and how the farming system that we currently have has them a track for the world to end. And I'm like, I'm never reading this book, but I need to have it in my house.
Yes, I mean, you want people, because most people, though, they're not going to ask you anything about it, or they're going to be worried that if they bring up a conversation and they pretend that they've read it, they think you might have, and then you can call them out. And you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, please don't ever ask me about this book, because I haven't read it. So everybody's just in one room scared. Everybody's frightened of this one book that could expose everybody for being ignorant.
So I'm going to tell you guys something. I mean, it's out there because it's on the internet, so whatever. So I interviewed Pete Buttigieg this year.
Oh, cool.
You know, just kind of marking like the 1 year, you know, gay man president, blah, 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 blah. And towards the end of the conversation, you know, I noted that he was in a library with a lot of impressive books. And I was like, and we know he's like a brilliant guy. So I was like, oh my gosh, did you read all of those books? And he confessed that he didn't read all the books, that he tends to like pick them up, start them, but never actually finish them. And he said he felt bad about it. And then me thinking I'm like, you know, connecting with him, I said, well, don't feel bad. I didn't finish your book either. And we shared, and we had a good laugh. But it's like I still haven't finished this book. That was like way back in June or whatever. Like,
well, look, no, he doesn't care if you finish it. He only cares if you bought it.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably
true. If I ever get around to, you know, Andy and I, we told the story the other night. We don't need to rehash it, but we technically speaking have been the co-writer of a book. Not even technically, it's a real book, and you can find it if you really look hard. But if I ever write another one, I think my main priority will be, please buy my book. And then if you can read it, great. But
if you can't, you know, just like it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, look, the three of us have done it. It's hard. It's actually hard to write a book. It is a very difficult process.
Right. And it's underappreciated. You know, it truly is. I felt as if I had gone through the most strenuous intellectual, mental, psychological, spiritual, emotional journey like I've ever been on with anything tied to work.
Yeah.
Like I would look at the screen sometimes and be like, do you even know what to say? like it was torture. So no, I'm not running back to that anytime soon.
You were ghostwriting. Like, did you actually even get to have your name on it?
No. No, which was actually good, because I was kind of halfway through realizing that maybe this isn't going to be as good as I hoped.
I don't really like this book.
It's like, I thought it was going to be something else.
Yeah,
my name's not on it.
Our name is on our book. I think it is both a good. It's not a bad. I think the book turned out well for what it was.
It's irrelevant because you can't like. You need to be a fucking detective to find the thing.
That is not true. You just go to.
What was the topic?
It's a book about. It's the autobiography of a guy named Mike Iaconelli. He is a bass fisherman. Remember when ESPN had like a big bass fishing renaissance?
Yep.
Around then, we did a story on this guy Mike Iaconelli. He got a book deal, and we ended up. The first writer didn't work out. We ended up on his book. So we were the on the bass fishing book about the Dennis Rodman of bass fishing.
Yes.
Literally the pitch. He is the Dennis Rodman of bass fishing, which tells you much more about bass fishing than it does Dennis Rodman. But it's just
awesome.
It was fun.
No, it was fun. I mean, look, it was a very valuable experience, especially because we had to write this book in about 4 months.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do. Like a nonfiction autobiography. We went to this area out in New Jersey where he's from, talked to like his friends, family, went with him fishing. Wow. Yeah. I mean, like it was a pretty intense experience. And it was great too, because you know Gary Belsky. And right around the time we got this book deal, we happened to be Gary Belsky, for people who don't know who he is a former editor of ESPN the magazine, one of the big ones, and he's got like the equivalent of coaching trees with writers. Like he's really helped a lot of people with their careers. And we happened to be in New York. Yeah. We happened to be in New York when it came through that we got this deal. We told Gary about it, and he's like, look, if you guys need any help, be sure to reach out because, I'm experienced with this. I'm glad to sit down, let you know anything you want to know. And we're like, oh, that's great. He's like, because you guys really don't know how to write a book. He's like, I mean, honestly, you guys have no clue how to go about doing this.
Yeah, that's
and like he just keeps going on. We're like, Gary, seriously, stop with this pep talk.
But
please stop.
To find this thing, though, I mean, the only way you're finding it, you break into my place, Andy's place, or my parents' place. It's the only. I'm not even sure Mike has.
That is not true. The Jewish population of the St. Louis suburb Creve Coeur, that book flew off the shelves.
But I don't know if they still read it. Like that's what I'm saying. So, but I don't even know.
I'll see if I can find it on Kindle.
No, I don't know.
It's on Amazon. I'm telling you.
Andy is dedicated to keeping
this. Be proud of your work. Be proud of it.
We did it. It was important.
You're probably big in China. You don't know.
Did you know LZ? And this actually could be good for you. At the end of every show, Andy, we presume some form of Dutch, thanks the people of the Netherlands because you currently, LZ, are appearing on what was at last time I was notified the 183rd ranked sports podcast in the Netherlands.
That is amazing. Do you know why that's amazing? My husband is 100% Dutch.
Oh, he must have been very excited you were on the show tonight.
Probably him. It's probably
him. It is him downloading right now as we speak.
But it was one of the great, I'm assuming, semi-spam emails I've ever received. Some automated thing from some podcast distributor like, hey, we can help you goose this thing. Congratulations, you currently have. And I was delightfully specific. The 83rd ranked sports podcast in the Netherlands.
Hey, you work with me for $10,000. You could be number 100, baby.
That's right, like a fucking rocket ship. This thing is taking.
I was waiting for the part with the Nigerian prince. Okay, look, here's the cover of the book. Here it is.
He's hot. Where is he now?
I don't know. He is actually. He's a good looking dude. He's got charisma. He's very tatted up.
He married the Tiger King.
You know what? I wouldn't put that past him. The Tiger King.
Look, you can see LZ. You can see the back tat. He's got kind of a tramp stamp going.
Yeah.
I'm trying to use my fingers to blow it up, but it's not working.
No, unfortunately, we don't have that.
He married the fish.
He married the fish. That would make sense.
It's very important to let people know no fish were harmed during the during the photography of this book cover.
So whereabouts in Jersey is he from? I didn't know that part of the country had bad fishing like that.
I want to say Runnymede. Brian, does that sound right?
I think that's where we were. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's so far over this.
I just can't.
The book is so far behind him.
He's from Philly. He grew up in Philly or outside of Philly, which is, I guess, Jersey.
Yeah, it's like he grew up on the Pennsylvania Jersey border.
Okay, I know that area. Okay, all righty. Yeah. That would make sense. I do know that when the DNC was there in 2016, because I'm tier 2 talent, not tier 1, we actually had to stay in the Jersey part and drive back and forth to Philadelphia. So I got to know that part of the world very well.
Do they tell you that? Like, this
Do
is
they
why
need
you're in
to?
New Jersey.
Do they need to? When the email goes out, and Robert Roberts' pickup call is like at 8:30, and yours is 5:45 in the morning, you know you're far away.
Right.
So they don't even tell you.
Meanwhile, in tier 1, all the sidewalks are lighting up.
Exactly. But the point being is because I was tier 2 or tier 3, I don't know, certainly wasn't tier 1. The fact is that I know that area because we drove back and forth for like a week, like nonstop. I could see that being a really big fishing area for sure.
Oh yeah. No, that was his thing. He is very, very into that. We wrote his you know what he wanted to be before he really committed to fishing? He wanted to be a professional breakdancer. Like that was his thing. That was the route that he wanted to go, was DJing and professional breakdancing.
Can you do that? Like, is that a thing that you can actually be a professional at? Like, when is it?
Like, you can be a professional background dancer for someone who does hip hop. It's just,
professional breakdancers does not feel like a growth industry. It doesn't.
It feels like it's got a limited ceiling. You think? I like this joke by Nathan Mark, by the way. LZ was like, "Check out that bass." Hell yeah.
No.
I mean, you could be a background dancer, I guess. You could do that. You can go to Vegas and maybe join the Jabberwockies.
I mean, I don't know if you can still do it, but there was a period where those background dancers for Madonna, I'm sure they were making a pretty good living.
Dude, they were rock stars.
Yeah.
They were absolute rock stars. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure the video to Vogue made me gay. Like, I was probably teetering up until that point. And then like the Vogue video came out, and all the guys were talking about Madonna because, like, you know, she was all out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, that is her song, isn't it? Because I was like,
Madonna's in the video?
I don't know who these dudes are, but they were handpicked by a god, that's for sure. Like, they were absolutely rock stars in the gay community. There's actually a documentary about them years later. Yeah, it's actually a really fascinating documentary. Doesn't paint her in a good light afterwards, but it also doesn't make the dancers look particularly bright either. But it's a fascinating look as to what happened after their popularity disappeared.
What happened?
Well, basically, they tried to sue her because, in part, that the documentary Truth or Dare, which was during the tour, outed some of the guys.
Really?
Yeah, apparently they weren't all out to their family until, obviously the documentary comes out. Now, we could all be catty and be like, really, girl? You didn't think about it? But we won't do that.
No, I mean, it's somebody's personal decision.
It is someone's personal decision, absolutely.
Well,
really, girl?
There are moments. I remember, like it was headlines when, like, George Michael.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, I just sort of assumed that.
I thought he was out for years because if you looked at just what was stereotypically considered hetero versus gay, he was doing everything in terms of the way he presented himself and dressed that would have been considered, broadly speaking, gay.
He literally dressed up like the police officer from YMCA.
Yes.
Shook his ass at the camera and said, I got to have faith. And there were still girls up there going, what? He's gay? And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I assumed he was out for years. I was like, great, cool.
Like Liberace? Like, remember when it was barely a drill in Liberace?
Right.
It was like, and this was a while ago. I wouldn't even had the awareness of these types of things. You just sort of.
I just sort of assume. I'm trying to think, when was the last time I was actually shocked by someone? And maybe because I have like a tier 1 gaydar, that it's impossible to shock me because it's just always nonstop.
Yeah, no 5:45 a.m. wake up call for you on that.
No, baby. I get it hot off the press. But no, I can't think of the last time that I was actually surprised by someone's gender identity or anything like that.
This is an interesting comment, like from Granite LA, who knows obviously what you do on the political side of things. You should have brought in LZ tomorrow night after the debate. I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna be watching the World. No, actually, tomorrow's a night off.
You will not be.
Night off.
You will not be watching the World Series.
Exactly.
Huh. I guess you want to come back. I'm just kidding. But I just assume I'd be watching a baseball game. Like I don't know.
How badly do you want to watch Giants Eagles, Brian? Like that's a real test to the.
I saw that commercial and I was just like, I almost hurled just with seeing the little teaser. I was like, you're trying your hardest to make this interesting, but it's not. I've watched the debates, of course, or the debate, presidential debate, the one VP debate, the ridiculous town hall, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow.
I'm still not convinced he's going to do it. I'm still not convinced that this debate's going to happen. It's
a possibility that it won't. You know, he's proven to be quite the squirrely character when it comes to keeping his word. So
I don't think
he is.
Are they going to be separated from each other? Because like if they're on the same stage, a mute button isn't going to keep him from like yelling at Joe Biden.
No, like, but it allows the moderator to take more control of the conversation.
I don't have a problem with it. I picture a moment where he like leaves his podium and walks over to Biden and starts yelling at him. And like this could get nuttier than if they just let them yell at each other.
Well, it's been a nutty process. Put it this way.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
My first general election experience came Gore v. Bush. And it's just been, after that, it was just kind of normal up until President Obama because of the historical nature, but still the process was normal. And then I covered 2016 and it traumatized me so much. I ran off and I just wanted to do nothing but sports. And I didn't do any politics for like 2 years because it was such a traumatic experience covering that for me. Being called the N-word and in a crowd, and stuff like that. Like
at the rallies?
At the rallies, yeah, absolutely. At the rallies, yeah. It was just, all of it was just really crazy. Run into Omarosa, wearing house shoes at the RNC in Cleveland. And I'm like, there's only 2 black people and one of us is wearing house shoes. Like, what the hell is going on here? It was so bizarre.
How early on in the process of these rallies did you hear stuff like that?
Once he had a significant enough lead in the primary that it was clear he was going to be the nominee, even though Ted Cruz was still doing his shenanigans, if you will.
Yeah.
And Teddy, wasn't very kind to me either. So it's not like I preferred him.
Well, he's a pretty warm person.
Weird. He's so out of character.
He's a very likable fellow. You must have caught him on a bad day, LZ, because he's typically pretty cool.
I was at a fundraiser, man, and he's talking about America and blah, 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 blah. He takes a look at me and starts quoting the Bible about homosexuality and hell and going and sin and all. And I was just like, okay, dog, I got you. One day you won't be elected. Then what? I'm going to run into you at the IHOP. Then we're going to see what's up.
Even his colleagues think he's an asshole. I mean, like there is... I'm not sure there's anybody in Washington that's more universally disliked than Ted Cruz.
Yeah, he was not a very pleasant person to be around in my experience. But back to the other thing. So once Trump looked as if he was going to be the nominee, that's when you really began to see more racial undertones to some of his rhetoric, and the Confederate flag started popping up a lot more. And things got a lot more hostile feeling.
That's exactly why I was asking. It's just like the idea of in this process of Trump announcing that he was going to run, which in the beginning nobody took seriously, myself included. In the beginning,
his children didn't take it seriously. They didn't register to vote.
No, I mean it was. I think still even to the day where he actually got elected, a branding exercise that spun out of control for everybody, including
the dog who caught the car.
Right.
Yeah.
But I the reason I asked is just because you could see that element coming out more and more. And I was just curious, like how early on in that process, in that evolution, to whatever degree you think it even required evolution or to evolve, that happened. Because I mean, you've been doing this for a while, and it sounds like you've never dealt with anything like that before.
Never. And I don't mean like the president's Confederate flags covering like a Republican, particularly in the South. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the flag represents racism. It represents, a lot of bad things, right? But even with that, I sensed there was a degree of ignorance to maybe some of the history as well. Not to say that I'm trying to give someone, grace in this situation, but I am, because that's my experience. That's what I sensed. But 2016 was intentional. It was intentional from the ground up. It was insidious at times. It was surgical in the way that the attacks on the media and then the attacks on people of color in the media, it looked diabolical to me, which was a totally different feeling that I sensed when I covered previous events of that nature.
What brought you back? You said it took you didn't want to, you just wanted to do sports for 2 years and all that, which is completely understandable. What brought you back to wanting to do politics as well?
I had to. I absolutely had to. Like, watching what was happening to this country, asking myself, what would I say to someone who said, "What did you do when this happened?" Right? And it's like, well, I was traumatized from years before, so I just put my head in the sand. I couldn't do it. So I started to contact my sources again. I started to get back into it. And then occasionally I did a little CNN hit, not too much. And then this summer happened. And, there are moments sometimes I wonder why I'm here. And this summer was one of those moments that I got an answer. All my years of experience, everything that makes me a journalist was important in the covering of what we all witnessed this summer.
Yeah, it was interesting. I went and dropped off my ballot today, and I happened to, I don't know, within 10 minutes of dropping off the ballot, I got an email from LeBron's More Than a Vote group, and it's about an event that's in conjunction. In conjunction with When We All Vote, a group that has, among other people, Chris Paul involved in it. And LeBron in particular has talked so much about Black people feeling, disillusioned and disenfranchised by voting, feeling like their voice doesn't matter, the process doesn't matter. And you think about the suppression that's going on right now, and beyond the immorality of it or how un-American it is in terms of the way America is always presented, as an aspiration or as an ideal, it's just how out in the open it is. How, in states like North Carolina, Wisconsin, or Florida, Texas, they're not even trying to be subtle about this.
No, they're not. And, you could see it building and building, right? Like, they throw stuff on the wall. Okay, that's not acceptable. Throw something else on the wall. Okay, that's stuck a little bit. Okay, let's work with that. Okay, let's see if they're paying attention. Okay, distraction over here. Okay, let's do this now. Let's do that. It is it's part of the reason why I say this experience is different than all my other years of covering politics in a bipartisan nature. And it truly is in a bipartisan nature. I count Matthew Dowd as a good friend of mine. He was involved with W's campaign as, chief political strategist. I count Kevin Madden, I almost forgot his name, as another buddy of mine. He was Mitt Romney's campaign chair. So it's not like I'm an activist or any kind of.
You and I have had a lot of political discussions off air, and you are not reflexively left on everything. I mean, I don't want to reveal too much of how you feel about whatever, but you're not reflexively like that on everything.
No, I'm not. And most of the things that I am, has to deal with humanity more than anything else. Certainly it's not policy, but it's about the policy that impacts humanity for sure. But the point being is that, in all my years prior to that, and all the conversations I've had with Republicans, high-powered donors, things of that nature, I never felt the way I did in 16. And I've only watched it get progressively worse. And my hope is that if, we're to fulfill this promise, that we've been pursuing all these centuries, that we see less of that going forward, regardless of who's elected.
Because I have, and it is simple. I work very hard, and I struggle because, I stay out of political debates with friends on Facebook because there are people who are too much, in my opinion, just saying, "Oh, you are a Republican, you're conservative, and therefore you are evil," or whatever it might be. I can't look at people that way. Maybe I should. I don't know. I can't do it. But I will say my anxiety over this election is significantly higher because there's sort of a fool you once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on us kind of thing. Like I genuinely worry about what it would mean not to elect a Republican to office, but to reelect him, and what it would mean in this country and what it would do to this country if he wins. And I just my anxiety level over it, like I try not to. Every Nate Cohn post, every Nate Silver post, like I'm just worried about it. And I need to. I think we all need to get through November. Like everybody.
We do. And I hear you, and I've heard that a lot from a lot of people, from a lot of different walks of life. And what I would say is, she's been imperfect for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
She will be imperfect for a long time. So the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. And regardless of who's elected, it's still one office. And there's a lot more things that the electorate can do as a people besides wait for the decisions from one office. And that is not optimistic, BS. It's just I've witnessed it over these years. When I started reporting, when I started this business, I wanted to be a sports reporter. And I was called faggot in job interviews.
In the actual interview.
Like heterosexual men in the mid-90s were not hiring openly gay journalists to cover sports. So it took me a while to even get through this. And now I look at it, years later, and it really isn't that long ago, 20 some years is not a very long time in history. You see the progress, right? Straight people have made a lot of progress in terms of getting over their fears, in terms of getting over their hate and their phobias, recognizing that we're all Americans, recognizing that we're all humans. So I bear witness to the change that can come even when the tides seem the highest. So don't be so discouraged. Be focused, but don't be discouraged because this is just going to be a long process, man. It just is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard when you can recognize that the passage of time in terms of the perspective of history, this country is young compared to other countries around the world. And when you're talking about just, for example, the experiences you had in interviews trying to start out in this industry, dealing with shit like that, I'm guessing that's 20-ish years ago, right, which in the grand scheme of things is not long at all.
Not long at all.
But it can feel like a long time to live it. And, the change, whether you're talking about governmental, whether you're talking about societal, cultural, whatever, these things tend to be incremental and often in the grand scheme of things may not be that long, but they can feel incredibly long for the people living through it and the ones that need the change the most and, and sort of can't afford to wait on it. It's urgent, but there's also the way the real world works.
And my question, I think, is kind of on that line is it's easy for me to say in the grand scheme of things, in terms of how political things move, gay marriage became accepted relatively quickly by our sort of social standards. If you were a person who wanted to get married for 15 years, well, I would imagine it didn't feel fast. I mean, like, certain, civil rights, may or may not, you could say, move faster. Whatever. If you were the person waiting for that, I don't have to wait any of this. I'm not gay. I'm a white guy. Like I haven't had to wait on any of these things. And I think one of the powerful things from this summer was a realization among people like me that, like, wait a minute, like, it's not okay to be like, well, it'll get a little bit better with a little bit of reform here and there, or whatever. So where are we, do you think, in that understanding collectively that certain things aren't okay to wait 15 years, even if in the grand scheme of things, that's not a long time for our country?
Well, I didn't mean to misconstrue the dynamic I was trying to talk about.
I understand that, sure.
Like I wasn't happy that I didn't get the jobs. I wasn't like, it's all right, dog, I'm gonna wait about 20 years.
I'll catch you in 20 years, man.
No.
We have a fundamentally incrementalist society. That's the way our government is created.
No, what I was saying wasn't about acceptance of the status quo. It was about not being consumed by despair of the status quo. That sometimes while you're in the fight, you're so consumed with all of the carnage that's all around that you don't know anything but, and it begins to consume you and darken your heart. I was referring to keeping your eye on what's in front of you while also remembering that this is a journey and that this moment isn't the period. It's maybe another comma, it's a semicolon, but this isn't the final statement of our journey. So it was like, don't be in despair even as you're fighting. Because trust, I fought every single step of the way. I didn't accept homophobia as to be the arbiter of the author of my, life. So I fought, but I also was constantly keeping myself aware of the fact that even though this boss is homophobic, or even though I was passed over again for this opportunity, that there will be a day in which equality will be a real thing and not a theory. And that what continues to give me hope, because I believe in truth.
Do you feel like this summer is a pivot point in that regard?
I feel like this summer was an important sentence in this story. What we're waiting for now is more of the byproducts of this summer, right? The efforts of companies. We need time to see what happens. The efforts from a political standpoint, a big push for not only to go out and register to vote, but really big push to things like pay attention to who your DA is, criminal justice reform, funding reform. So when you talk about this time right now, Brian, it's going to take us a while to really know, because a lot of the things that came from this time is going to take a period of time to actually bear fruit.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's actually interesting. I mean, and probably the last thing we'll get into, but it was something Brian and I were talking about before the show began. There's so much talk about how the NBA getting involved with social issues and really putting them in the forefront of the playoffs and in the bubble has negatively affected ratings. And that, for some people, that is the reason. I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons that the NBA ratings are down. And I don't doubt that is one of them. I just don't think that's exclusively it. But in terms of, I guess, sort of gauging signs of either people's reactions to this positively or negatively, what do you look for? Because I know, like, for example, when the NBA made these decisions to, have the statements on the back of jerseys or Black Lives Matter on the court, the different the financial resources that the NBA was dedicating to these different causes. At the time, it really felt, I think, from the outside looking in, that public sentiment was on the side of these players. And that, you look at different polling, you looked at different reporting, that seemed to be the case. And you could just look at the turnout at these protests. And there was a lot of, I think, real evidence that the public was behind these causes. But then you look at the ratings of the bubble, and there's at least reason to believe that doing what they did in the NBA might have been a bridge too far, or at least a little bit too far.
Well, at the very least, there are people who are deeply dedicated to the idea of blaming.
Right. And there are a lot of bad actors involved with that. But in terms of, I guess, real tangible effect or fallout from it, positive or negative, like what do you look for in terms of trying to gauge how something like that was received?
Well, I think first, the conversation about the NBA ratings is the equivalent of what about Chicago in the sense of when we talk about, gun violence, right? It's like, look over here, we don't want to talk about this right here.
Absolutely.
So when people talk about the ratings and they don't tell you that hockey is also down and that fishing is down and that golf is down, when they don't tell you that viewership across the board is down and they only focus in on the NBA, they're telling you right then and there that they're politically motivated and they're not necessarily concerned about the longevity of the NBA. So I think that's first. Two, without question, viewership was impacted by what people perceive to be the politicization of sports, right? Like, without question, they lost viewership because of that. But they also probably gained some viewers because of that as well. People who may not have been that interested in the NBA for a variety of reasons, but care passionately about these issues, certainly they found themselves being covered by more outlets. So perhaps they found themselves also attracting different eyeballs that they didn't have before. And then number three, it's really hard for any industry to gauge what it is in 2020.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what the fuck we are.
Nope.
We don't know if we're successful or falling to pieces. We don't know if we got a great idea or an idea that's not going anywhere. We don't know. So for anyone to try and surmise anything concrete because you had a season that started, in the middle of July when baseball all-star game is supposed to be played, and then the next month we're trying to get ready for the playoffs, but the NFL is starting, which never happened before because those don't cross up, and we're still playing baseball. Like,
or there are debates going on.
Debates going on. Like, what exactly? And not to mention all of the nonstop coverage of the coronavirus in general. Anyway, it's like, what exactly are you trying to extrapolate from this?
Yeah.
So I heard those conversations and I saw who was framing those conversations, and they were very transparent. And I'm sure Adam Silver is concerned about the ratings, but there are a variety of reasons why the ratings were the way they were.
I just think the tells here are both obvious, but also incredible. Like, first of all, the idea that, you'd be your priority calling players, calling the, guys in the league stupid because they're costing themselves money, as if, the business end of this is the only thing anybody should ever care about, how much money you're making and what your income is, but the other half of this is like, we normally lionize, often for good reasons. Pat Tillman, we made a hero out of, I think rightly, for sacrificing money for something that was bigger and better. But when players are perceived to have sacrificed something bigger and better, particularly in this case, black players, suddenly it's this horrible thing. And like, there's not this sense of, appreciate, like, wow, like, even if I don't agree with it, like, that's an amazing stand. Like, they're willing to sacrifice millions of dollars for something that they believe in.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the conversation for a large chunk of the population. I think I understand why, but it's a tell.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And what I say about every election, and this one in particular, is like, who you vote for says everything about you and very little about that person. Regardless of who you vote for, you're making an announcement to yourself. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And it just, it is going to be very interesting to see what this country says it really is after this election. I'll put it that way.
That's the part that, like, to kind of wrap up the way we were talking about, like, kind of introduce this. That to me is, because again, you can't pretend that I was hoping it would be X, Y, or Z. You know what it is now.
Right, right. There's no more, we're better than this.
Yeah,
There's
we aren't. Yeah.
This is us.
Yeah, there was regardless of the reason why you voted, if you voted for Donald Trump, regardless of the reason, he was a pure theoretical, because you had never seen him do anything like this before. You'd never really seen anybody like him look to take office and gain that much steam. And, he's been a public figure for a long time. He's often been a very controversial guy for a long time. He's done a lot of the things as a public figure, as just a private citizen that he's done while in office, espouse a lot of the similar views, but everything could be seen as a theoretical in terms of, well, what is he actually going to do once he's in office? Is he going to turn off the shtick? Is he going to do things differently? And the answer was no. He's going to act exactly like he has as a sort of public-private citizen for decades and campaigning. And for some people, that is certainly the appeal. But for other people, it was the way to try to compartmentalize it. And now you can't. So what you decide to do upon not being able to compartmentalize it, I think, like you're saying, it doesn't necessarily make you a terrible person. In the same way, I want to make it clear, voting for Biden doesn't make you a great person automatically.
Or even a good person.
No, it does not. I can
not even a mediocre person.
No, there are going to be some people that I don't like who vote, like if I looked at their ballot, would be exactly like my ballot that I turned in today. And there will be some people that I do not like at all. But either way, with Trump, there is no more theoretical. There is no more compartmentalization. Right. You know what this is.
Right. And you know who you are.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that scene from Lost Boys. Great scene.
Which one?
Where Michael finally realizes that he's a vampire.
Yeah.
And he goes, so, you know who we are? You know who you are.
It's an underrated movie, by the way. It's a really fun movie.
I might watch it tonight.
It's a fun movie.
I love that movie. I was so obsessed with that movie that when I saw it in the theater, it was at the mall, and I spent the rest of my bus money, to get my ear pierced because Michael became a vampire after the whole ear piercing thing. So I was like, ooh, the vampire's coming to get me. Needless to say.
Was that before or after you had seen the Truth or Dare?
Oh, that was before Truth or Dare. But
Okay.
clearly, in retrospect, Jason Patrick was a very good-looking man. I probably didn't give a fuck about those vampires. I probably was just gay. Nice work, Andy, with your psychoanalysis, just blowing up my little childhood
I've been
story.
Listening this whole time, man. I've been listening, keeping inventory the whole time.
Let's see. What was it? Marco. It was. Who was it? Andrew. Was it Andrew?
I don't remember the
Marco.
character. I don't remember any of their names. I just remember thinking Kiefer Sutherland was such a badass in that movie.
Oh, he was total badass. Always walking in slow motion.
Yeah, and he had that trench coat with a flipped up collar,
right.
spiky hair.
Always mist and smoke around him all the time.
That movie is so of its era.
Yeah,
really.
Yes.
But it's really fun. I'm actually surprised.
I loved it.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised it hasn't been remade or done as a Netflix thing.
It was remade.
Was it remade?
Someone came out with like a Lost Boys 2 or something.
I don't remember that.
It had one of the Coreys in it still. I guess whichever one didn't pass away. I don't remember their names, but it had one of the Coreys.
Haim is no longer with us.
Okay. So the other one is Edelman. What is it? What's the other one? Corey
Feldman.
There we go. I call him Edelman. I guess I had the pictures in my head.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's in like the reboot or whatever.
Luis Angel 2408 said, I saw also LZ on here and automatically clicked. So there you go.
Much love.
If you're just pointing it now, remember you can replay the whole thing as soon as we're done, because at some point we got to let LZ. We do feel slightly less guilty for keeping you slightly over the hour now that you're not doing the show at 6 a.m. Now you're on at a more civilized time of day.
I am, and it's crazy, man. Like I was like, look at me waking up at 7.
Like a teenager.
Bad boy.
Burning the candle at both ends.
Both ends.
7.
And it was like a friend of mine was like, that's still early, right? And I was like, is it? It feels naughty, like I'm being bad.
No, man. Scotch and sleep until 7:15 tomorrow.
Yeah. I might not set the alarm.
Hey, George is here. Jorge. Your former runner, your board runner. Is he still doing?
Hey, where is he?
He's right here.
I don't see him.
Wait.
JB Cam LA. No
more coffee. What do you mean no more coffee? No more Starbucks.
Yeah,
Jack,
that's true.
I miss you, Jack.
All right, dude. We will let you go because we know you are too kind and you'll stay with us the entire night. We miss you, man. We miss you
guys
a ton.
too. But we're still like right here. Like
I know.
You text me and I just responded. Like there's no reason to.
I know. That's true.
We didn't break up.
That's true.
It's
that
totally
is true.
Cool.
I know. You are correct. You are correct.
The
and we
proverbial we, that includes you, Brian, too. That was just a one-way we. All encompassing.
Before we let you go, do you have anything to promote?
What's happening?
Yes. The next time you do a Zoom meeting with colleagues, wait.
Oh, man. Like, yeah, that's just unacceptable.
Wait.
Yeah.
I'm promoting waiting.
I read a column today that this was really like the outrage over this is really just about America's inhibitions and stuck-upness about masturbation. I'm like, no.
It's
at work.
He's at work.
He's on a work call. Like,
ever since
what
was it? Ever since like
Louis C.K.
Apple's Criminal, we've been over the whole masturbation in the bathtub.
Right.
We get it. It happens. All right. Got it.
But we've learned, like, I mean, literally, did you not pay attention to what happened to Louis C.K.? Like, this is not appropriate. Like, period. It's not.
I'm shocked it took this long to have something like this happen.
Really?
Like some sort of scandal like this in the Zoom area. How many people don't know how to operate the internet software and shit?
It's just
we are a disgusting gender. We are.
Yeah, we are. But still.
Don't masturbate at work. It's not complicated. Don't do that.
Like, or just step away. Step away. It's a Zoom.
He was stepping away. I think that was the problem.
Further away. Step way further away.
No. Wait.
Yeah.
Just wait.
No, I agree. Wait.
Just wait. Wait.
I agree. But if for whatever reason
there's no reason. There is no reason.
There isn't.
There is no reason.
There's none. There's literally none.
Because honestly, if you're old enough to have a Zoom meeting, you're no longer at level 10 with the testosterone. It's already dipping anyway. So don't act as if you just got to.
Yeah. I mean, Jeffrey Toobin's no teenager. Like, he can wait.
Wait.
That blue pill kicked in.
Well, then that's different. Because that's a precious resource you should not be wasting.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. If anybody takes anything from this broadcast, don't do that. Just don't
do that. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait. I promise you it's going to be just as good. Just wait.
You will not know the difference. We promise you.
Whoa. Actually, double entendre. LZ, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We miss you, dude.
All right.
Miss you guys as well.
And we'll get back to some World Series stuff. We'll do baseball the rest of the week and into next, probably. But this was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
All right. Dank you, Nederland.